this also here. Okay. Does anybody has any questions before we start? Okay. Okay. So Java programming language is pretty much, you would say it's 27 years old, not a very, very old language, but came about in mid-1990s. It came about as a programming language. But Java actually predates 1995 under a different name called Oak. Java as a programming language was used for consumer electronics purposes under the name Oak. But as internet was making its way into homes, the web browsers needed some application development language because there was no JavaScript back then. It was only plain HTML with very limited implementation. So Java applets were developed as a way to embed them in a web browser, and you'll be able to do some backend data exchange, or be able to present something from backend to the front end. But then other server-side languages developed over the period of time, and JavaScript became very powerful. So the use for Java to present data in a very meaningful manner with graphs and charts and all of that stuff died out by the early 2000s. However, Java in the meanwhile became very strong in terms of application development, because applet was not the only way Java was getting used. And at the same time, the Java, which was developed by Sun Microsystems, which is now Oracle, because Oracle purchased Sun Microsystem, they also used Java front end to develop their operating system called Sun OS. And also Java being platform independent became the choice for implementation for a wide variety of servers, because that became the language of choice to write applications that would work on all platforms. And that's what makes Java platform independent, which we'll talk a little bit about in chapter number 1. So then when Java became very strong in application development, at the same time, the Java developers were trying to launch a server-side Java application development, which didn't take them much longer. By mid-1990s to late 1990s, between that time frame, they developed some kind of a solution. So by late 1990s, we had Java server-side application development coming into place as well. So Java became very strong by that time. And Java slowly and gradually created another medium, which was called Java Micro Edition, so that it could be used on smaller computers, or smaller computers like portable computers. And that's where your Android market comes in. So when Android market came about, that became the language of choice for Android application development, Java. And then with tablets and now transitioning to televisions, there are billions of devices out there which are Android-based devices, and they're all running Java. And at the same time, while all of this was happening, Java was also getting used for game development. And then when Android application development picked up, Java became the choice for writing games for Android or Android-like devices. So that's how the Java grew in all three mediums. It's being used in desktop application development, which is called the Java Standard Edition, which you will be learning in this course, and Java Micro Edition, which is what you will be learning next semester in fall of 2023 in the mobile application development programming class, and Java Server Edition or Enterprise Edition, which you will be learning also in fall of 2023 in advanced Java course. So by the end of this year, you would have seen all flavors of Java, this desktop edition, the mobile edition, and as well as the server edition. Any questions so far? Everybody's doing good?
Yep. All
okay.
good.
Now, so the book for this course is right under the units, which is e-textbook, which comes from the Cengage Unlimited. And also, let me tap into the syllabus before I start digging into the units. So, January 17th, which is today, we will be covering chapters 1 and 2, and you'll be getting your very first assignment to work on. Besides that, I will also be showing you how you can set up the Java environment on your home computer if you want to work it on your home computer. And Java environment could be set up on any computer, just doesn't matter, Mac, Windows, Linux, or whatever. And the entire environment setup is absolutely free. We just use free tools to set up the environment. So, in fact, under Start here, I've given you some steps that will take you to the resources where you can go and download and set up the Java environment. I will be using Eclipse, which was an open source, which is still an open source, but was purchased by IBM 15 years ago or so. And then IBM built its tools on Eclipse. So Eclipse environment looks very similar to the RDI environment. It's just like it doesn't has all the RDI tools. It's specially designed to do Java or C++ or PHP kind of programming. So the environment is very similar, yet it is limited in terms of its uses. RDI can do a lot more than what Eclipse can do, but it's on the same architecture. But whenever you download Eclipse, Eclipse requires you to have already downloaded Java. So the first thing you got to do is download Java. You could either go through your favorite search engine and go to the download page to download Java. Java 19 is the latest edition of Java. Java 20 will be released in 2 months. It doesn't really matter to us. We could probably be perfectly fine even if you have Java 8, which we'll be doing here in this course. So when you click on the download link or you go to the download page, you will see that the Java Standard Edition, which is called the Java Standard Edition Development Kit, or JDK or JSDK, you will see that it has different editions by operating systems. And somebody may be wondering why does it do that? One of the ways, before I explain to you why it does that, one of the ways Java traditionally can be installed, it's by using an installer, or you could download a zip file and unzip it yourself. Or if you have an MSI installer, you can go that route. So whichever route you want to take, you could take to download Java. Now, let me tell you why we have different versions of Java by platform. You will not see that in any other downloads that you will do. The reason is because Java is platform independent. That means you can run it on any operating system from Windows to Mac to Linux. And this is how Java made this possible. They created a layer between your software where you're running Java and your operating system. That layer in the middle is called Java Virtual Machine, JVM. What JVM does, it basically makes the operating system layer transparent to the coding layer. So when the Java code comes down to the JVM, then JVM translates the Java code based on the underlying operating system. That's why when you take the Java code from Windows and you transport it to the Mac or Linux, you do not have to recompile the code because the JVM understands the Java code, even the compiled file. All it does then is when you are ready to run it, it takes the compiled file and makes it such that the underlying operating system can understand it. So the operating system never directly talks to the Java file. It only communicates with the JVM, and that's how they made Java platform independent, that you could run it on any operating system. That's why when you install Java, you basically install the virtual machine of Java, which will make it possible for you to run your Java applications on your existing native operating system. So when you're done writing your Java code, the Java code that you write, which is in human readable form, has a source file extension of .java. And after you compile it, it has a class extension .class. .class files of Java are basically your executable files, means that files that you will run on Java platform. And .java files are those that where your source code resides. So .java and .class. I'll show that to you again when we start coding. And then, you know, this is basically step number one. You download the Java. Once you are done downloading the Java, then comes the next step where you go and download Eclipse. When you're downloading Eclipse, it basically gives you this link called download Eclipse for Windows. It automatically redirects you to that one because you're using Windows operating system. If you're using Mac, it will redirect you to the Mac download. So once you start clicking on the download, it will basically ask you to install the Eclipse installer. The reason Eclipse gives you an Eclipse installer, because in the good old days, people were getting confused, which Java should I install? Because Java Eclipse actually is not the only tool that comes from Eclipse. Eclipse have several tools for Java, then several tools for other technologies. So what the Eclipse developers did, they created an installer. When you download the installer, and you click on the installer, it asks you which version of Java do you want to install. So when you click on the installer, which I'm just clicking right now, I'm going to wait for it to come up. Okay, did it come up? Let me check. Okay. Oh, here it is. Found it. Okay. When the installer comes up, notice it has all these applications that you can install from Eclipse, right? But we need only the Eclipse for Java developers. So that's why you will choose that option. So step number one, you download Java. Step number two, you download Eclipse. So you click on Eclipse for Java developers, and then you go through the installation process. And as a result, you simply click install, and it installs the entire Eclipse for you. Did everybody follow that?
Yeah, I'm confused. Not confused, but my computer is like, which one of the Javas? Like, there's so many. When I pull it up, there's like so many.
Are you talking about the Java install?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you go by your operating system. Which operating system do you have?
Oh, I'm on Google Chrome, I think.
Oh, no, you cannot install on Chrome. Chromebooks, you can only install on Windows, Macs, and Linux. If you have a Chromebook,
I have an HP what is this one? Elite book.
Which one?
The Elite book.
Okay, what operating system does it has?
Windows.
Windows, yeah. So you can install it on Windows. So when you go to the Java site, if you scroll down, it gives you the Windows installer. You can just click on the installer, the executable file, and then you can run your installer. And we're going to install. Jack is up to you, whichever IDE you want to use, but I will be using Eclipse in this course. If you are more familiar with NetBeans, it's perfectly fine to use it. Yeah. The IDE doesn't really matter.
I have a question for the Mac OS. What's the difference between
what? Say that again. I did not hear the full question. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so it cut out there a bit, but I just had a question on the Mac ARM 64 DMG installer and the Mac OS X64 DMG installer. It's on the Oracle page right here.
Oh, because if you have the ARM based OS, then you have an ARM installer. If you're not an ARM OS, then you have the regular installer.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll have to look into that then. Sounds good.
Mhm.
So mine's just saying download the Java Windows version 8 update. I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to.
Yeah, so you click on the installer and it's an executable file, and then you just follow through the dialog boxes, and then you go till all the way till the end of the installation.
Cool. Okay. And then you said I gotta download.
Okay, so when you're done downloading Java, then you go to the Eclipse website link that I gave you, and that's where you will click on the download.
Is that in our unit?
No, it's under the Start Here link, right underneath the syllabus.
Okay, gotcha.
Both links are in the same place.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. All good. I got it now.
So then you can go to the Eclipse download, and it will ask you to download the installer. You click on that and we'll bring up this installer.
Okay. Then I click on that thing.
Yeah. So are you here? Where I
Yeah,
am? Yeah, okay.
prior to the one before that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hit the download now.
Okay. Yeah. And then it will give you a little executable that is downloaded.
Right.
Yeah, you click on that, and then maybe in a few seconds, you will see the
Yeah,
Eclipse
right here.
installer window. And on the Eclipse installer window, you will choose the very first option, which is Eclipse IDE for Java developers. And once you do that, it will then take you to the next screen where you
Sorry,
can
how did you get this little menu to come up?
this thing.
Yeah.
After your executable installed from the internet, I clicked on the executable that downloaded from the internet, and then that opened this installer for me.
Let's see. I bet you didn't miss this. He's slowing you down.
No, that's fine. It's basically I want everybody to be able to install it, because that's very important for you to complete your in-class and homework.
Right.
How about the rest of you? How's everybody else doing? So Desmond, did you see the installer window yet?
I'm trying to. I don't know what my computer's doing. Give me a second.
Okay.
I think it's behind our window over here.
You might want to check the downloads folder. Like in the downloads folder, it probably will be there as an item under today.
Yeah,
And-
okay. I got the menu. Jump to the other screen. I have multiple screens, so I'm always fighting with my screen.
Yeah, so that'll be the easiest thing to do. And you know what, considering that, I actually, you guys remember I was working with 4 screens last semester.
Yeah.
I removed 2 of them. This semester, I'm just working with 2 screens. I'm like, that's too much. It's too much going around. So I kept 129-inch and 127-inch, and I got rid of the other 2 screens.
And you said move down to Eclipse.
The very first one, Eclipse ID for Java developers, the very first one.
Okay, and install that. All right.
Yeah, just click on that and then click on install.
Yeah, it was behind my other screen. It was behind the class screen, the Zoom that we had up. So I didn't see it.
Okay, okay. No problem, Zach. So Zach, which step are you at right now? Are you downloading Java or are you downloading Eclipse? Okay, cool. And I'll get it install pretty quickly. It's not a big file.
Do I launch it?
Yes, yes. And for those of you who have launched the Eclipse and are sitting on this particular window or dialog box that I'm sitting on right now, this is basically a dialog box that tells you where you want your files to be stored. So it automatically picks up a location. If you want to change the location, you can always hit browse and you can find a different location. Or for example, I want to pick a folder called fall 2020, spring 2023, and I hit launch. Then I'm going to launch it over there. Okay. So however I want to do it, that's the location where all your files will go. So it just needs a location to store your files locally. So I'm just saying, if that folder doesn't exist, it will create it for you. If that folder does exist, well and good. Okay. So now hitting launch, and you can always check this checkbox so that it doesn't always ask you, it just directly goes in Eclipse. You can also do that. So when you launch it, it launches Eclipse. So when it launches Eclipse for you, you get this welcome tab that you can always close by simply hitting the X on the welcome tab. And that will bring you right in the Eclipse environment. So if you guys could give me green check whenever you are inside the Eclipse environment. Okay, I know, Zach, you're still in the downloading process. How about Ethan and Tatiana?
The only question I have is how did you get into the screen you're in from the main menu?
Oh, I just click on the search and I typed Eclipse in the search and it just showed up in there and I just clicked on it. If you
I mean from the main menu in Eclipse. Where
Oh.
do you get to where you're at?
Oh, I only had a welcome box that I closed and
Oh, okay.
and then and I'm gonna land me here.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Okay, cool, Tatiana. Thank you. Let me know when you're in and you close the welcome tab and that will take you right where I am. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. We are just in the process of setting up the environment and I will give you the steps and you can download the environment in the meanwhile while I'm going over chapter number 1. So that way, you know, both things can happen at the same time. So,
Yeah, that sounds fine.
So Java environment, in order for you to install that, I've given you guys a couple of links under the Start Here button on the Blackboard. On the Blackboard, under Start Here button, you will find the very first step. You got to click on that link, and that will take you to the Java Standard Edition 19 install page. And based on your operating system, you can choose an installer. If you have a Windows operating system, then you choose a Windows executable file. And then after you're done installing the Java, Then you will install the IDE, which is the integrated development environment, which we are using, that is Eclipse. And the second link in step 3 is of the Eclipse. Once you click on the Eclipse downloads and go to its downloads page, it gives you a link to the Eclipse installer. That's an actual software to help you install the Eclipse environment. And when you click on the download for that, it downloads the executable file for you. Once you click on exe file, and once the installer gets downloaded to your machine, you open the installer and you pick the very first item in the installer, which is Java IDE for Java developers. And once the installer screen comes up, it's the very first item at the top. So once you are done installing both items, this one, Eclipse IDE for Java developers. So once you are done downloading both things, your environment is all set up and you're good to go. Then you open Eclipse and the Eclipse software opens up. You close the welcome tab and this is where you land.
So is it the first SE development kit 19.0.2? That first
Yeah.
one?
Are you here on this page?
Let me.
Under the start here button on the Blackboard, the very first link.
Yeah, can I just show you my screen?
Yeah. Let me
Yeah, just so
share.
I'm getting this right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I have Windows, so it'd be any one of these two, right? It can be any one.
You should use the executable one right above that.
Okay.
And that will be, yeah, it is downloading and at the top.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was getting the right thing.
Yeah, that's fine. So once that executable gets downloaded, you simply click on it, you follow the wizard, and then, you go through the process. In the meanwhile, like after that installation done, then you go through the Eclipse download process. Okay. So Tatiana is also all good. Okay. And Zach, how far along are you? Oh, you're good? Okay, cool. So to get started, I'm going down to units and I am going to unit number 1. And just to let you guys know that we'll be going over chapters 1 and 2 today. Again, this is very basic stuff. That's why I have 2 chapters for you today. Chapter number 1 pretty much teaches you what is Java, what is the Java architecture, and how you write hello world-like applications in Java, and some of the basics of Java. Chapter number 2 talks about variables, operators, data type, input, output, that kind of basic stuff that you would have learned anyway in your first semester intro to programming, but now you're learning it from Java's perspective. So it isn't like something very, very advanced, but of course, whenever we start teaching a new language to you, we start at the very basic level, at the grassroots level, and then we start building the language like that. So that way, some of you might find it that, oh, it's so much easier, and that's good. Because once you find it easier, you start grabbing the concepts, then it's easier to build on top of those concepts. Okay. And then, as you guys know, that from time to time, I share some YouTube tutorials with you that I've put together in the past. So like that, there is a folder over here as well with those. And then I will be making the Zoom recording available here in the same link under Unit 1, probably later tonight. And then you have the assignment problems, which we'll talk about towards the end of the class. So to get started, let me open the book Okay. Java Programming 10th edition, Joyce Farrell. This was just released. We were using 9th edition till last time we offered this course. It's copyright 2023. And she added some new chapters in this book. So some of the topics she added in this book, I usually cover them in advanced Java, but this time I will be covering them in Java 1. So that will probably, increase this class's standard a little bit. And then will free up some time for me in the next version to cover more topics. So, that basically is nice. The way she structured these chapters, which is slightly differently than how she used to do it. So that's why, I will be using that to my advantage that way. Okay. Let's see. So one of the good things about this particular author, and the reason that I've been using her books from almost a little over 20 years now, is because she gives small examples, brief examples, and she explains those examples also. So that's one of the reasons. And then the way she breaks things down in chapter, it's very easy to follow. You probably have used her book before in Intro to Programming in Database, right?
If I purchase my book through the bookstore online, how do I get the code for it? Because it's asking me for access code.
Yeah, I mean, like if you purchase it from the bookstore, you should have the Cengage Unlimited Access code,
Yeah.
which should have been emailed to you, or did you have it in person? I don't know how you guys received that. I do not know the details.
Yeah. I bought it online. I'm gonna check my email.
Okay. And then each and every chapter has review questions, some programming exercises, some debugging exercises, some game zone like problems, depending on, what is the direction in which the classes are getting taught. So right now, the way she structured this book, she has, if you look at the list of the chapters, some of the stuff you guys would have already covered in Intro to Programming, but from a C# perspective, not from Java's perspective. So as you can see, the first 2 chapters are about creating Java programs using data. Then she starts going into methods. Now that's where you will see Java syntax, which is different from the C# syntax that you are familiar with, but not very different. So this whole chapter 3 is about writing methods like functions, value returning, non-value returning functions. Then chapter 4 is where the actual object-oriented programming of Java begins. So we're going to take, at least by the week 3 into this course, you will be starting to see the actual object-oriented programming in Java. So we will be covering chapter 3 next week and chapter 4 the week after that. And then the next thing that you will notice in this book is that goes into making decisions, which is if conditions and switch case. But it is slightly different from what you learn in Intro to Programming, because after we have covered some object-oriented programming, anytime we learn a programming construct like if condition or loops, we will try to incorporate object-oriented programming into that concept as well. So that is a little step up from Intro to Programming, where you only learn an if condition, but you didn't really learn how to apply that in an object-oriented world. So we will learn that piece as well. And same in loops, same in characters, strings, and string builder. Now that's an entire chapter which talks about how to work with strings and characters. and a special Java class called string builder. Arrays used to be 2 chapters before in the earlier editions, but I'm glad she put it all in 1 chapter. It didn't need it 2 chapters, because after you guys have already learned what arrays are, they aren't any different in Java than from C#. So it's just like, you know, you're learning it from Java's perspective with some differences. So it is easier for me to now incorporate object-oriented programming constructs in arrays. And then inheritance and interfaces, again, that used to be 2 chapters. She combined them into 1 chapter, well and good, because I was anyway covering both chapters in 1 class. So that frees up some chapters afterwards. Then there's an exception handling, which is try catch block. Then there is file handling. Up till this point, whatever it is, it was in the older editions as well as this edition. These are some of the newer topics she introduced in this book, which I used to cover in advanced Java, but I will now cover in this level of Java. One is called the recursion, and the other one is called the collections and generics. Her chapter number 14 is that she still teaches swing environment, which is the older Java environment. Not that it is not used anymore, it's still used, but I am thinking about replacing chapter 14 with Java FX, which is the newer Java environment, which I traditionally introduce in advanced Java, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I should introduce that towards the end of this class, so that in advanced Java, we can just start a heads up and then just keep moving like that. So anyway, that's the game plan for this course. Does anybody has any questions? Miguel, did you get everything installed and everything set up?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay, cool. No questions? Then I'm going to just start with chapter 1 then. Okay. So chapter number 1, these are the learning objectives. You define basic programming. I mean, like, there are some concepts which I probably will just briefly touch over, because I expect you should already know what is programming and what do we mean by the word program, who is a programmer, and we will concentrate more on like Java concepts. But programming in a gist is pretty much about putting set of instructions together and giving it to the computer in a manner that the computer can understand and process it to produce a useful output. That's all programming is all about. It's a combination of art and
Last year, audio man.
So,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, is that just me or is that everybody?
oh,
We lost you.
oh,
Are you supposed to be sharing your screen?
oh, it's not sharing anymore. Oh,
No, we lost you there for a good 30 seconds again.
okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can see your screen share.
Okay. So basically, oh, so you guys were with me when I was talking about the different chapters in the book?
Yes, we
Okay.
only lost you for like 30 seconds.
Okay, okay. So I'm now starting with chapter number 1. And I was talking about that in chapter number 1, we will be discussing some of the Java features, but I will not be spending a lot of time on the basics of programming, that what is a program in particular. You know, it's a set of instructions that you give out to the computer to produce a useful output. And programmer is a person who does it. And programming language is a language in which you write a program. Those kind of concepts are explained in 1.1. 1.2 is where the author tries to differentiate between procedural programming and object-oriented programming. Procedural programming is where you write functions and they're put inside a class or a program, and everything is at the function level. You pass parameters or you do not pass parameters, but one function calls another function. Everything is at the program level. The older approach to programming was that. The newer approach to programming is object-oriented programming, where instead of putting the functions out there loosely, you put them inside classes, and then you make the classes talk to each other, and then they can decide what they want to use within each other. So that's the object-oriented programming approach. Java, as I told you, is an object-oriented programming language, and it is platform independent, means it can run on any operating system that you saw. You do not have to recompile the code to rerun the code. That is the biggest advantage of Java programming language. So let me get to section 1.3. Oh, and let me also talk about one more thing here. In object-oriented programming in section 1.2. In object-oriented programming, the class is pretty much the name of your program. The name of the program, which is your class, could serve as a blueprint to what you want the computer to know about this program. That program typically defines a real-world object that you want to now program. For example, if you're interested in programming a bank customer to store the information about bank customer, so you will create a class called bank customer. Inside that bank customer class, you will start writing the details of what you want to store about that bank customer. Once you are done writing that blueprint, you will now start creating the bank customers. Each bank customer that you create will be called an object of that class called bank customer. So a variable whose data type is a class is called an object. A variable whose data type is a class is called an object, and the class itself is a blueprint of the object. And the applications then start using those objects. So when we talk about object-oriented programming, we also talk about the concept of encapsulation, which is basically hiding the underlying details from the people who are using that. Inheritance is another concept which you will learn about later on in this course, where your objects increase so much.
Oh, we lost you again.
God, you know what? I'm going to try to turn off my video.
Is it just me or everybody else lost it?
Same.
Okay.
Right. We lost them.
Okay, I will turn off my video so that, you know, it's not sending in the video signals, and probably is better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
We
can
can
hear you
hear
now.
you. What are we supposed to see
Yeah.
right now, though?
Okay, I will share my screen again. I was sharing it before. I don't know, on my end, it shows me that my screen is getting shared. But probably in your end, it's not sharing screen. Okay, so I was talking about the encapsulation, which is hiding the underlying details. And anybody who wants to use that detail, you can basically just share the classes without telling what is inside the class and just tell them this is how you use it. Inheritance is when your classes grow so much that you need to be able to create a hierarchy between your classes. And that's where you use the inheritance, where you push some of the... Oh my God. It's still cutting off?
You're back now, and your younger picture is up there.
Okay. So I don't know why it shows me every now and then the connection gets unstable.
Yeah.
Okay. I probably should have restarted. I'm going to restart my router. Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a 5 minutes and let me restart my router and let me be back. Okay. So I'm ending it. So connect back in 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
Fine.
Good.
Yeah.